Welcome back, everybody, to Talk of the Now podcast. I'm bringing to you back Mr. Keith. Keith, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How about you, Gene?
Doing pretty good, pretty good. I've had quite the you know festive time this Christmas time. How about yourself? How's the family doing?
They're good. They're
Hectic.
good. We're finishing up laundry, trying to pack up. We're gonna go ahead. Gonna go see the in-laws early for Christmas and go see them for a few days, and then get back home in time to enjoy being at home for Christmas. So yeah,
Ah,
it's been good though. It's been real good.
very nice. Well, today's episode, we're going to talk specifically about something that I sort of feel like I have a heart for. That's something that's in my background. We've touched on it in a previous episode when you first came on, and the last episode as well. And it has to do with the trades, the
Hmm.
trades field, if you will.
Hmm.
One of the TV shows that I love is This Old House that comes on PBS. I would imagine a lot of people, if not most people, have at least heard of it sooner or later. And it's basically a show. If nobody knows, it's basically a show where you have these tradesmen, professionals that show you. This is way before the HGTV days and the
Yeah.
DIY channel days, where they would show you how to repair and fix a house and um, do all the different home improvements and that kind of thing in a real way, like in a real kind of way that shows you how pros do it and what the
Hmm.
methods they use. So I guess with the spirit of helping people figure out how to do it on their own.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, I'm trying to think because, for a younger audience, I'm thinking that like a 15-year-old may say, "What's a trade? What do trades do?" So, Keith, let me let you take that away, Keith. How do you define trades yourself?
Uh, well, you know, I've known a lot of people in them. I haven't been one, but like you, well, similarly to you, because you've actually had your hands in it as much with your dad and your brother and
Hmm.
others that you know. But um, the skilled trades, as I've come to know them, um,
Good
are
term.
pretty much any part of the industry that has to do with um, building, maintaining, servicing pretty much anything it takes to keep society going in a way, in a very real sense. Um, so the skilled trades can be anything from auto body, which is
I
your
have
family
some of that
background there.
background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Auto body and mechanics to
Hmm.
carpenters, plumbers, electricians, HVAC, masonry. Uh, I mean, honestly, even to um, barbers and cosmetology. People that cut and style hair. That's a skilled trade. So it can be all of those and more. And I think particularly when you think of skilled trades, a lot of people think jobs and careers that have a lot to do with your hands and doing something with your hands, fixing things, creating things, maintaining things. So
Hmm.
that's uh, yeah. So like we were talking about with skilled trades, pretty
Yeah.
much anything that people do with their
Hey,
hands.
sorry. Look
Oh,
who's
there
joining
he
us.
is.
Jason is
There he
here.
is. He made it. Rock and roll.
Jason was supposed to be with us at the beginning, folks. We started without him. He was having some technical difficulties, but he's here.
That I am.
Jason,
I'm
we're
here.
talking trades. Keith is giving us some definitions and telling us what the trades are.
All right.
Yeah, so I mentioned several different ones, but essentially I kind of came down to eh, essentially any type of career where you're working with your hands to build, create, maintain, service, whatever that might be. And actually, just listening to an episode that you guys just did, actually, I say just did, it's probably been a while, but y'all were talking about the beginnings of radio, and I loved it because I
Ah,
just listened to this part where Jason was talking about in the broadcast, radio broadcast
yeah.
program that you were in at Troy, where y'all did things with your hands to learn how all the equipment worked, right?
Yep. Yep.
And as Jason said, I was like, man, I got to mention this because this is what myself and the two founders of the school, this is what we talk about all the time. There's so many things that you can take a class for. You can read a textbook, but it's not real, and you don't understand it until you get your hands on it.
Yep.
And so there's something we were talking about recently. I can't remember who we were talking to, but I was like, well, online learning is for online careers, and hands-on learning is for hands-on careers.
Yep.
So that's kind of our big thing, is to go, yes, you can watch videos about how to do plumbing. You can watch videos about how to do, woodworking and carpentry, but that's only going to take you so far. And one of my partners, Chris, he says it all the time, especially with plumbing. There's so much feel involved in knowing if things are connected right, if there's the right amount of torque on something. There's so much feel involved that even if you had some VR experience, where you're got big goggles on doing some VR experience about, oh, I'm twisting this, you're not going to feel it unless you've got your hands on the real thing. So that's a big part of our push is.
Oh, if I can stop you there real quick.
Yeah.
Your school. We haven't mentioned that yet in this program. Let's talk about your schools. Keith is helping to found this new trade school, and tell us about it.
Yeah. So about a year ago, a good buddy of mine came to me and said, I've got this idea that I've been it's kind of been percolating for about a year, actually almost 2 years. He's like, hey, I thought about it, wrote a bunch of stuff down about it, and thought, okay, there's nothing I can do about it right now. So he shelved it, mentioned it to a couple people, and then about a year later, brought it back up to a couple people that he knows. And then through a series of unfortunate events, no, I'm just kidding. Through a series of events, he and I got reconnected. And through that, he called me a couple months after that and said, hey, I've got this thing that I'm trying to do. I think I need you. Okay. With my education background, he's like, we need an education guy. I've gotten it to this point of kind of getting the idea out there. I've talked to a couple, we've got one other partner. They've talked about it a good bit. They've agreed that it needs to happen. And then they brought me on board and said, okay, I think you're the next piece to get us to the next level of actually making it happen because of my education background. So yes, we have started Trades Education Center, and the vision is to equip today's generation for the next 30 to 50 years of the skilled trade, skilled trades. There you go. So to fulfill the need that's out there, as you guys well know, in the past couple of years, especially, we've heard more and more people talk about the need for skilled tradesmen, tradeswomen, tradespeople. But we decided we're tired of hearing people talk about it, and we're going to do something about it. So, so far we've self-funded to try to get it off the ground. And so here we go. Well, we've had we started with plumbing. My two partners are in the plumbing field. They've been in and around plumbing since they were toddlers. So they know it well. But that's part of the missing piece in a lot of the skilled trades now is my two partners, they grew up in the trades, but there's not a lot of people growing up in the trades right now. Not a lot of young people know that the opportunities are there. So that's part of what we want to do is bring back the awareness of the skilled trades and the opportunities there. Well, obviously, one of the people we kind of look to that's been doing that for the past 10, 15 years is Mike Rowe. He's probably been the loudest, most consistent voice, pushing and pushing, even though people didn't want to hear it. But now people are starting to pay attention because they're starting to feel it when they call and all the plumbers locally are busy until next week. Now it's starting to impact people. And so when it impacts people, they start to care. So that's what we're doing. we started in October with our first group of 6 apprentices, and our motto is educate through experience. So everything we do is hands-on. It's in person, it's hands-on. They get to use the tools, the hand tools, the power tools, real equipment. A couple weeks ago, we were practicing installing water heaters. And so we went old school. We did pro press on copper pipes, but we also did soldering. So we had the torches out with solder and copper, and it was fantastic. And all of our 6 apprentices are all currently employed by my 2 co-founders, and they're kind of our guinea pigs. But even those guys that are employed in the plumbing industry, pretty much none of them had actually done any of that. And that's kind of part of what we want to address is even somebody trying to break into the trades doesn't necessarily get to have their hands on things, particularly in the first year of employment, for sure. They're the ones that are going and grabbing parts and grabbing coffee and all that. But the focus for us is to get them hands-on experience very early on so that they can go out, get a job with somebody and be actually helpful on day one and not be berated for not knowing anything, because that's what happens when you're new. You don't know anything. So that's the goal. We've got a 8 to 12 week program that we're fine tuning right now, and we hope to start our first real class in February and offer those in the spring, summer, and fall of 2024. And this week, literally 2 days ago, we signed a lease on a space of our own, so we actually have a place. Yeah, dude, you couldn't have timed this any more perfectly, Gene.
Congratulations on that.
We are pumped. I don't know where the money's going to come from. Anyway, but but we signed a lease for 2 years. Wonderful partner. We've got a local church that's in an old elementary school, and they said, look, you can have the end of the building, these 4 like 25 by 25 classrooms. So big rooms. One of my partners, Chris, and I were over there demoing stuff 2 days ago, moving stuff around. So there's a lot to do. But man, I could not be more excited. So
where is this, by the way, the location going to be?
So it's kind of outside of Athens. It's between Jefferson and Athens, Georgia. So for all you dog fans, it's on Highway 129 headed toward Jefferson. Which is one of the US 129. It's one of the main thoroughfares that connects Athens up to 85. But so anyway, so we're, maybe 10, 15 minutes out, maybe 10, 15 minutes outside of Athens, right on major highway. It's it's Southside Church Redstone is the name of the church that we're leasing space from. Incredible partners. They've been very kind, and so we're pumped. We're ready.
And if they have any emergencies, they know who to call.
Listen, for real, right?
No excuse for any plumbing issues in that building.
That's right. And that was actually, it's one of those things. Man, gosh, Gene, you were talking about this on one of your podcasts where y'all were talking about how, like with your dad's auto body shop, where a lot of people bartered, right? You bartered services,
right,
or trading horses, as you called it. That's part of what we did. We're like, okay, well, they had some plumbing issues they needed to fix at the church, and we're like, hey, okay, between the partners, we can give you the labor and we can give you the materials. How about give us a couple months free? So, so we kind of worked that into the deal. So there you go.
Have you tried to contact Mike Rowe as far as getting him to maybe endorse you guys over, social media and whatnot?
So we announced that we existed, that we were a thing. We announced that on social media on Labor Day of this year, which we kind of thought that was an appropriate day to announce that we existed.
Yeah.
Celebrate labor by saying we're going to try to address a labor issue,
right,
or workforce issue. So we did tagged Micro on every post that we did that day just to see if somebody with his organization is watching. So and I think once we have our facility, our because we've been working out of my partner Chris, his plumbing office. We've been working out of his shop with our first crew of apprentices. So now that we have our own facility, once we get it up and running, we're gonna kind of reach out again once we've got a little bit more, a little bit more under our belt to kind of say, hey, that we said we are starting, we really are. Like we
Right.
really do exist, and we're really getting going.
I was about to say, I think if you reached out to, I'm sure is it Micro Works, something
Yeah,
like that?
Micro Works
Maybe reach out
Foundation.
to their media relations department or
Yeah,
something. That would be a big step, I think, proactively. And maybe as I mentioned earlier, the this old house might be a good contact as well to have them. They love to document things like that on their show.
yeah,
From what I've seen.
and that is the cool thing that we have seen is when we're ready to really let some of those, kind of, if you will, bigger name people and organizations know that when we're ready,
Right.
what we've seen is they are most pretty much consistently open arms to anybody that's trying to do something to help the trades. And actually we've seen it already. We have four manufacturers that have jumped on board with us to support us with with instruction, like instructional materials.
Hmm.
I mean, between Chris and I've developed the curriculum for this first we call them projects. This first project, Introduction to Plumbing, we call it Project 8. I developed the curriculum for that. However, we did that so that then we could go to our manufacturers and say, hey, this is what we've developed. Does this fit with what you guys do as a company? Because our other partner, Tim, he's in plumbing wholesale. He has a wholesale warehouse for plumbing, and so he has a lot of the industry contacts. So he's going to them saying, "Hey, listen, this is what we're doing. We know that you as a company are already in that education space when it comes to the trades. So that's the other thing. We've been kind of picky about the companies that we've looked at. So far, Milwaukee Tool has jumped on board.
Wow.
A.O. Smith, American Standard, and who am I forgetting? That makes fun. That's kind of funny. Odie, Oatey. They're man, they're big in like the rough end part of construction when it comes to plumbing. So a lot of your solvents, cements, if you will, that come into plumbing, stops underneath your faucets and stuff. They're all over the place. Odie is. So we've gotten some really good partnerships with just those four right off the bat.
Hmm.
So we're excited to see what happens from this point forward. So
What's been the feedback that the I guess the apprentices have given y'all about it so far?
it's been good. So like I said, all of our apprentices at this stage are either employed by Chris, who has he and his father have a plumbing service company, and then or plumbing service contractor, if you want to call him that. And then the other founder, Tim, he's got a plumbing supply warehouse. So he has four guys that are doing the project with us, and then Chris has two. So the two guys that are from the service side, what's been interesting to hear from them is, oh yeah, I see these things and I see the actual. So they're both apprentices. They help an actual plumber, like they ride along and help. They're a plumbing helper.
Right.
Both of these guys have been excited because they've gotten to actually use the tools and do some of the things that they haven't been able to touch yet or haven't been allowed to really. um, so that's been good. Um, and then for the plumbing warehouse guys, they see all the tools and the parts every day when they're fulfilling orders. They see all that stuff come in and out all the time. Now they're actually getting to see how they're used. And they're making those connections between, oh, that's why when a plumber comes in and orders, a faucet or let's say a sink, that's why they order all this stuff to go with it. Um, they've got to have a stock kit, they've got to have a P trap, they've got to have all these things that go with a sink. So now it's starting to click for them, which is kind of fun. They get to tell the service guys, hey, this is what we experience in the warehouse when people come in and talk to us. So they're helping the service guys know what it's like to work in the warehouse and deal with orders. The service guys are getting to understand how much better it is when you know what you're asking for and you're using the consistent terminology in the industry to order the right parts, to understand timelines that, hey, some things you can't order today and expect them to get today. They're just not going to be there. And be careful when you make promises to clients if you don't know if you have the parts yet. So it's really neat to hear those conversations, and those are, and we do those on purpose. So when we started this, we didn't want to just get more plumbers in vans and trucks to go service. We wanted to address the whole plumbing industry. So we wanted people to come out of our program and they could go work as a plumbing apprentice at a service company. They could be an apprentice at a facility where they're doing all the plumbing at a facility. UGA, I think 3 weeks ago, UGA had a post for an apprentice plumber to come work on camp. No. I think full-time. Yeah. A regular plumber to work at UGA. Kind of makes sense. It's a huge campus. That job, $80,000.
Wow.
I mean, that ain't bad. And
too,
plus,
sure. Yeah.
plus it's a state job. And so then you have all this benefits. So, so there's facilities maintenance that plumbers can do. There's service contracting. There's the wholesale side, which is the supply warehouse part. And then there's another thing that I learned, which I didn't know about. And I know it happens in other industries too, but in plumbing, they have manufacturing reps and they have agencies. So these agencies, they are kind of the go-between of the manufacturers and the wholesale warehouse, or your service contractor, your facility, stuff like that. They're the go-between. And so there's several that are around. We worked with one, or we do work with one. There's a couple different big ones around, but that's what they do, is they create those relationships between manufacturer and end user. Well, not quite end user, but end servicer, I guess you'd say. So we're trying to prepare people that come to us to be educated in plumbing and to experience plumbing. We're trying to prepare them for all aspects of the industry.
Wow. So that's a mouthful right there as far as what's going on with it. I mean, that does shed a lot of light on it, I think, for sure. Okay, let me ask this basic question. Where, when it comes to demand, is there still a lot of demand in the plumbing industry for apprentices? I mean, that might be an obvious question, but I'm just curious.
Well, yes, kind of. And that's, again, this is part of what Chris first approached me about, was the difficulty in plumbing. And I will go ahead and say this up front. Different parts of the country act a little differently when it comes to the skilled trades. So, but here in Georgia, as a right to work state, and obviously not we obviously don't have a very strong union presence here, which for better or for worse, either way, depending on where you go with that. So some of the challenges that represents is we do have an association here in the state of Georgia, and it's actually a nationwide one, that's for plumbing and HVAC. And they do have a Georgia chapter here, and they do work with plumbers across the state. But part of Chris's frustration is finding new people to get in and train them up. Particularly right now with the demand that's on plumbers, they don't have time to train someone. Particularly when I think Chris said the average age of a plumber in the state of Georgia, or not the average age, over 50% of plumbers, that's what the number was. Over 50% of plumbers in the state of Georgia are 50 years old or older.
Wow.
And as my buddy Chris said, a lot of those guys you don't want training the next generation. Because, for better or for worse, in trades can be a rough occupation. And so you don't exactly have plumbers that would teach the way schools have been teaching with, gloves on and, being careful about what you say and who you say it to. So that's part of the issue. Is a lot of plumbers don't have the patience to train anybody. So what happens is you might get a young person in there and they just get chewed up one side down the other for a year. And after that, they're like, I'm done. I'm tired of being fussed at for stuff that I don't know, that I didn't know I was supposed to know. I'm done. And
Right.
so Chris said, we've got to do something different. We have to do something different to approach this next generation, to get them involved, because it can be an incredibly good career, and incredibly good. I mean, you can make good money in pretty much all the trades. You have to work hard, but you go home satisfied at the end of the day because you put in a good day's work. So that's his big thing, is providing an entry point into the trades where a lot of people just don't have it right now. And plus, if you go look up plumbing jobs in the state of Georgia right now, I would venture to say at least 50 to 75% of those require some level of experience. How do you get it? And that's part of the hurdle that we're trying to address, is give the next generation essentially an intensive course. And here's as many things as you could probably enter and see and experience in your first year of plumbing. Let's let you have that experience in an 8 to 12 week project. Let's let you have that experience, and then you actually have an idea what you're doing when you go apply for a job. So that's the goal, and it's definitely a need. Georgia in particular is one of the states with the highest need of plumbers. And of course, Department of Labor has projections about what careers are growing and what ones are going to need. I still don't think they have a good handle on the trades, in some sense, because they do, obviously these people study these statistics a lot, but Chris, Tim, and I still don't think they've got it. They've got it right. I think there's a bigger need than they think there is. Because when you look at the building going on, even in the type of economy that we have right now, when you see the building going on with housing, facilities, those don't just magically get maintained, and parts wear out, appliances wear out, faucet,
Right.
all those things work. So there's going to be a growing need, and more plumbers are retiring than we are starting with new plumbers. So it's big need.
go
go
ahead, Jason.
No, I was going to say it's kind of you talk about trade jobs. The one that kind of makes everything run, within the industries is trucking.
Mm-hmm.
And we have had a nationwide truck shortage for probably 8 or 9 years. And it's truck power shortage. I mean, there's just not enough people to do them.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, if people understood that you have to work hard, and it takes a certain kind of person to be a plumber, it takes a certain kind of person to drive a truck.
Sure.
But if you're willing to make that sacrifice, it can be very rewarding. There are trucking companies paying close to 6 figures, if not above, to drive a truck every day. And, not a lot of people know that. And, you're going to have situations where, like you said, plumbers don't work. If there's not enough people to maintain things don't get built to start with because they can't get plumbed properly. Or maintained. And for that matter, if trucks aren't available, nothing can get to those plumbers to get things trucked. So it all kind of works in concert with each other. It's like it really is this well-oiled machine that sometimes, needs a little more grease. So,
absolutely, agreed. Yeah. And I think that's the other thing that we've talked about is you don't have to go far for opportunity. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but you don't have to go far. I mean, Jason, you and I know a couple guys in the trucking industry. I mean,
yeah,
there are trucking jobs that'll take you across the country. There are trucking jobs that you can go get up in the morning, drive your route, come back every day, and be at home every night. So I mean,
and still make decent money too.
Yeah, very. So I agree. It's that they're all so interrelated, and I think that's why I'm learning this too. Is the kindred spirit that there is among all the trades. Mm-hmm. Of course, there are running jokes between the trades, just like there are between branches of the military, right? Mm-hmm. Because everybody makes fun of the Air Force, but for how easy they have it. But anyway, but yeah, like plumbing and HVAC, that their running joke is they don't hang out with electricians because electricians think they know everything. So, so it's kind of funny to learn that side of it. That every industry and every set of industries has their running jokes. So anyway,
I know from watching This Old House, they talk about carpenters can't stand plumbers because they love to bore holes into their joist and
yes,
get all
they
the
do. Different. Yes, they do.
I can't tell you how many episodes I've watched of that as an outside observer because I'm not a carpenter that I could claim to be, and the guy, one of the main guys, Tommy on the show, like he'll show the host examples. He's like, look at this. There is nothing here. It's just a hole that's been bored out of this of this joist that keeps the house put together.
That's when that Tommy DeSilva, I think.
Yeah, Tommy Silva.
Yeah, dude.
Silva guys. Brothers is their company that he's had. I think going back to his father, maybe.
Yeah.
And that show. There a guy named Rich Tathui on that show is the main plumber of the show. Okay. And I tell you, I've been a member, This Old House member, so I pay a monthly fee of about $4 or $5 to get like all their content.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
I can watch it through my Roku. And so I've been going back and watching every single episode of all the seasons, all the way back to 1979 when they started the show with Bob Vila.
That's awesome.
Oh, the good old days, Bob Vila.
Yeah. Watching Rich Tathui, though, just to relate to your plumbing industry, when he first came on, because I was thinking about this when you said that that gap between a generation that isn't necessarily instructors or teachers and the younger gap of kids that are a lot of times hungry to learn something. It's really interesting to see a guy like him because he seems like a guy that really wants to teach people and get the learning out there. When you first meet him on the show back in the old days, his dad comes on the show and he's got the button down. I think at first he was wearing like a suit even, but his dad at one point, who was the main plumber, he was like his flunky. He's got like the button down, the old school kind of button down.
Not like a
jumpsuit type thing.
Yeah.
Or even the shirt sort of kind of like, sort of the coveralls or even the nice suits. Like sometimes you'll see, I'm trying to think of, not parts workers, but maybe like the Jiffy Lube guys or people that work on, they'll have the nice name on the shirt and everything that's buttoned down, maybe even a hat. It was one of those type of things. And I think going back, we'll say probably even pre-war, War II, there was just sort of this dignity that you could see in some of the trades. Like even we've all seen the old milkman commercials and television things where the milkman has a super nice white uniform on with a white hat, and he looks like he's enjoying his job delivering the milk and everything. And so he's taking pride and joy in his in his milk truck and delivering the milk to all the residents in the area, even the mailman back in the day. Go ahead, Jace. You look like you want to say something.
No, I'm with you on that. It harkens back to something that I think Keith heard with me one time at one of the Catalyst conferences one time. A book called Fred Factor.
Oh, yeah.
And it talks about this guy's mailman, Fred, who went super above and beyond. Like, to the point where he was out of town. He knew he was out of town. They knew each other, for one thing, which is a rare thing these days. And he would walk his route, which is also rare. But he knew it so well that he would go above and beyond for his people on his route. One time when this guy was, I can't remember the guy's name, but the book's called Not to Play. I just remember that book. And he knew he was out of town, and instead of just like trying to hide the package behind like a plant or something, oh no, he opened the screen door, put the package behind the screen door, shut the screen door behind it. I mean, just when you're talking about taking pride in work, even something so menial a task, if you do it well, it's like he said, at the end of the day, you're like, hey, I had a good day's work. I mean, think about it. I mean, even MLK gave a speech called the Street Sweeper speech.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about, if you're the street sweeper, be the best street sweeper in the world. And that's kind of I think the attitude of like a Mike Rowe and him promoting this is, you can make everything your art, your passion, your life. That's like you were talking about before one time, Jim, when we were talking about how you grew up in the body shop business, the difference between repair and replacement. Not a lot of people repair panels on a car much anymore. They replace them. They don't repair the metal. They don't bend it back out. They're like, well, screw it. I'm gonna cut this out and we're gonna put a new piece in. And I get at some point you have to do that, but I'm more likely a lot of times these days we're just gonna replace that part, as opposed to repairing something. Which I would venture to say that a good chunk of plumbing is, we got to know how to repair this already existing, we don't know who did it, situation. So there's an art and a passion involved in that.
What was I'm sorry, you seem to cut out on me. What was the name of the book you said?
It's called
Fred Factor.
Fred Factor.
The Fred Factor. I can't even say it.
It's always a lot of F's.
The Fred Flintstone. Okay. No.
It's just one of those ones that's like, it's just it tells a story of this, but it's kind of along the lines of that, like, take pride in your work.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm glad both of you mentioned it. That's another mountain that Chris and Tim and I want to climb, is reestablishing respect and honor in the trades. It drives Chris nuts as a lifelong, like literally a lifelong plumber. He's like, I know, I get it. I know the caricature of the bald fat guy with his crack hanging out, he's like, I get it. And so he and his dad have taken that on personally. So with their company, every one of their vehicles has their company name and phone number on the side. Their guys every day have the same. I've got one. That's one of the red cups up there. Anyway, but all the guys have the same red shirts on when they go to a customer. Like, say if it's a residence or a company, either one. They park out front where the customer can see the vehicle. They walk up the driveway, not across the yard. They walk up the driveway, and then they're standing at the front door with the red shirt, with the name of the company. Over their shoulder, you can see the vehicle that's got the name and all of those things add up. And he and his dad are big believers in that. Makes a difference. It makes a difference when people go, wow, okay, these guys are real. Like, they have not only respect for what they do, but they have respect for me as a customer. So that's another big part of what they're trying to do is reestablish, if you will, that level of respect and honor in the trades.
Right.
So for that reason, we're not necessarily just opening our arms to anybody and everybody that wants to help us. We're kind of being picky. We know some of the companies out there that they've got reputations. We'll just put it that way. They have reputations in the industry that they're not really there to help people. They're there to charge a lot of money for things that people don't need. So we're not making partnerships there. We know we could be losing out on money on that kind of thing, but it's a bigger deal to us to try to kind of, create an upswell within the industry to make it better. And it's going to be better for everybody. It'll be better for customers. It'll be better for the people in the industry. So, all those kind of things.
Makes sense.
Well, yeah. And I was thinking, even with I think of all three of us, at least from what I know, we're all fairly teachable people.
Mm-hmm.
We enjoy learning.
Mm-hmm.
We enjoy soaking in the knowledge. We know that, but with that also comes a healthy respect for those who do know more than us, and saying, and of course we were all kind of raised that way too, like to where we're like, I might get up to the same kind of level as somebody technically in a job, but I think I've always been kind of one of those people who says, but if that person's been doing it for 50 years and I've been doing it for 10, I might be on the same job level, but I am nowhere near the experience level of that person. And it's hard because if the other person doesn't see that you're doing that, or respect it, or can tell that you're coming at it from that vantage point, then in these cases, they're just this 20-year-old that's just trying to knock them out of a job, and there becomes this weird hidden underlying competition, which, yes, competition's good in business, but it can be a little bit of an obstacle for learning and for furthering your career. But I guess that's kind of what I've always thought is like, no, teach me more. I don't know anything. Like I come into it mainly going, I want to know more. Like, say I don't know how, say we're talking about I'm getting into long distance shooting for guns or something like that. Like, I don't know. Teach me. I want to learn from people that know what they're doing or have a passion for. I also respect the passion too in somebody who's had that passion for a longer time too. Anybody knows me knows I'm a passionate person, and I tend to keep a lot of knowledge too up in this massive head on top of my shoulders. It's lost in shipping sometimes, but it's there. But just, I think going into it with that attitude of no, I want to know more, and I know that kind of gives you more of a, I don't want to say a better work ethic, but it kind of shapes your work ethic in a weird way, because you're like, ooh, I'm learning. I want to learn more. And how do you teach that in somebody? That's kind of another challenge.
Yeah,
I would think. Like,
right. Yeah. I think that people should go back and make their kids watch Dirty Jobs, old episode of Dirty Jobs, just so they can, because he does such a broad, it is a funny show, but he does such a broad spectrum of different kinds of, trade type job. Not every trade job is a dirty job, but
No, but it's, but I think that's more the stigma. Also, the title of that show is kind of addressing the stigma of the fact that, oh, you're dirty, you're the lowly tradesman worker. It's like, well, that lowly tradesman worker keeps things going and is always going to be essential. Right. That's the key.
Yeah. Well, I know one of my favorite episodes of his, not really my favorite because it was disgusting, but he was following a porta potty guy around, and he basically was saying that the guy started out, doing whatever, and I think eventually he was making like 6 figures a year doing what he was doing because he started his own porta potty business.
Talk about necessity. There's certain things that are always going to be there, and
everybody's got to go.
That's right. Everybody's got to go. Think about things, and we laugh at. There are certain companies. I know we don't like to endorse like companies, I guess, but there are certain, like, I think of plumbing companies with purple vehicles that drive around the Atlanta area that have funny sayings. A royal flush beats a full house. Things like that. Yeah.
Or we're number one in the number two business.
Like, I don't know how they are as a company. But they're brilliant in their marketing, and you remember that company because of that marketing. And it's like you said, you got to people like, all right, take Zero Res, a big cleaning company that started. I think they started in the duct cleaning and now they do ducts and
carpet
floors and carpets and everything. Charge salt water, literally no residue left over. Brilliant. But things is they show the difference in their people when they show up at the door. And your normal, he's like, you see a nice clean cut guy next to a picture of a guy like, I'm here to clear your carpets, and this one's like, hey, I'm from Zero Res. I'm here, and it looks nice.
Yeah.
But it puts that person at ease, you know, and it's like you said, it's a brand recognition thing too.
Which another thing that we're trying to work on too, particularly in plumbing, is Chris, Tim, and I. We're definitely wanting, you know, as we're making some inroads with some of the local school systems, to let us come in and talk to the students and let them know the opportunities are there. But one thing in particular that, you know, Chris has talked about from the service side, in particular when it comes to plumbing, is he wants to get more females into plumbing. And the reason being, he's like, you know, we service older couples, older females, younger females that are single. And he said it, and he said, I just think we can offer a greater level of comfort and ease if we have a female plumber show up, you know, and we can maybe ease the tension a little bit and ease some of that fear of, oh no, I have to call a plumber. Some big, hairy, nasty looking dude is going to come in my house, you know? I mean, and that's coming from the mouth of a plumber. Okay. So, but I mean, again, that's part and parcel to the bigger picture of what we're trying to address. And honestly, we know there are plenty of others doing that too. So it's just encouraging that when we talk to companies, and that when we're starting to talk to some of the school systems that, in particular, kind of out where I am, some of the school systems out here are definitely open to what we're doing. I think they've got a bigger picture in mind. I think they see the bigger picture of what's going on in our economy and in the country in terms of the need for skilled tradespeople. So it's nice to know that it's being recognized that there is a need. We're just hoping to hit the need right where it is and not miss it. And again, starting with plumbing, we're hoping to add HVAC later on, electrician. Actually, we've got a gentleman down in Florida that he wants to join forces and do masonry with us. We're like, hold on, yes. Let's do that, but hold on. We got to get this started first. So, so masonry, carpentry, whatever, you know. But like you said, it's a need across the board. It's a need to redefine the respect and honor that comes with those. And like Jason, I'm glad Jason said it. We're not anti-college. I mean, I've got a 4-year degree. I've got a master's. I'm not telling people not to go to college. I'm just saying, hey, for those of you that college sounds like the worst thing ever, there's a lot of options out there.
Right.
You know, tons of options out there, and they're really good ones.
And for that matter, you get into the trade and you fund your college education later. I mean, you know,
and that's the other thing is some might get into a trade and find out, hey man, if let's say I go get an associate's degree in business, then I'll learn a little bit more about running my own business. It takes a lot to own a business. That's
and I think, I think there's something good to say to that when, I mean, there's so much guidance that needs to be given to kids anyways, but if a kid knows that, hey, for instance, I'm thinking in my own head of myself when I was 15, and we're going to round it out here in a second. And I thought to myself, I want to be an HVAC guy because I couldn't think of anything. I didn't want to go to college. I ended up deciding I wanted to go to college. However, it would have been nice to have somebody that could guide me on more of what that would look like if I did go to vocational school and become an HVAC guy. I actually knew a guy that did that. He actually ended up becoming an HVAC guy through vocational school. But the thing that, I don't know. I think if a lot of kids knew that, if they just, because so many, including myself, you get to 11th or 12th grade and you're sort of like, I'm graduating in May. I don't know what to do. But if you know that the vocational school that's in, wherever, Cobb County, Gwinnett, your local county has or a city has a vocational school, and you can look at it and say, well, you know what? I'm just going to go take the electrical class and try to become an electrician, or the plumbing class. And I think that they don't realize that you could do that and be debt free. And let's say and I'm just giving a hypothetical here. Somebody starts out as a 20-year-old doing plumbing. They go 5 years, or I'm sorry, yeah. Let's say they do a year and a half or 2 years in trade school. They're doing 5 years of plumbing. They have 7 years of plumbing experience under their belt by the time they're 25. And then let's just say they work all the way up to 28, and they're like, you know what? I think that now that I'm a supervisor and I'm supervising 2 crews, maybe I'll go back to school and get my, like you said, associates in business, or even my own business degree through my local community college. Next thing you know, you've got a business degree and you've decided to become an entrepreneur, or maybe a manager of a plumbing company or whatever. And by the time you're 40 years old or something, you might be making 150K as like the head supervisor of whatever
or more
company.
Yeah, or more. And you did it all, and you went to college debt free because you paid for it. Yeah, and there's parts of me that wish I would have done that for like IT or something at the time. Talk about a career I did totally just blew by me. I mean, that could have been, something else, and you can still do it. I'm not saying you can always start something new. That's kind of the other thing we need to remember.
And I think it can't. No, go ahead.
What does Dave Ramsey say? Colonel Sanders didn't fry a chicken until he was in his
that's true,
late 60s, early 70s.
Well, the IT is a great one as well. I mean, that one is kind of, I mean, it's an I would say it's more of a, I don't know what's the color between white and blue. It's sort of an in-between white and blue collar type of deal where it's sort of a tradesman
Carolina
in a lot
blue.
of ways.
Yeah, really. Well, no, it's true. It can
powder
be
blue.
It's a tradesman job, but it can be, it can be an office tradesman job, but it's still, you're still learning a trade per se.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a concept like a business degree or something like that, where yes, it's business, but business is so overarching. I think of trade schools too as specifics as well. Like I'm learning.
A lot of times they can include things like, barber, learning how to be a barber, or being a cosmologist.
Yeah. I mean, how many people go into the barber college these days? I mean,
I can say this, a lot of women, just to look at it from the female side, if they knew the opportunities that were there for working in hair cuttery and that field just alone. I mean, I know a lot of women that went on, they went to college or whatever, and now they're doing, now they own their own salon out of their house or whatever, or they went to cosmology school?
Cosmetology.
Cosmetology. Thank you. Excuse me. Cosmopolitan here.
They might have one while they're getting a haircut. Anyway.
Yeah, really. I mean, there's so many things that you would have never, imagined would be a good career back in the day. I mean, like I was talking about with trucking, I mean, I used to work for a major container shipping company, and we would always talk about how, it doesn't matter what the flow is of containers at a port. If there aren't trucking companies pull those things out of there, those containers are going to sit there, and, you think there are so many like support industries to things. There are backbone industries like trucking, like rail, those kind of deals. But there's so many little supporting, like take the film industry, for instance. Big here in our state of Georgia. All three of us are from this random place in Georgia, even though we're not going to talk about exactly where we're from. No.
Yes, don't give out our addresses.
No. I won't do that. But we've had a very blossoming and very thriving film industry here. But it's not just the production companies. It's the green screen companies. It's the catering companies. It's prop houses. Right. It's all kinds of things that go along with one industry.
Well, they, man, that was a great story about that. A little tiny one is in Tucker, Georgia. There's a long-standing company there, Kofor Brothers Lumberyard. When we were going through 2007, 2008 with the housing, crash, they were hit pretty hard as a supplier, right?
Yep.
Well, what rescued them? Hollywood. That was when really, the first spark of really things taking off in Georgia in terms of TV and movie production was really around that time. Well, I think it's Chip Kofer. He's like, if it wasn't for those guys, he said, we might have folded after, over 50 years of being in business. He said, we might have been under. He said, but man, those guys were like, hey, we need supplies and we need them now.
Right.
And so Kofer Brothers there in Tucker, just a little local company, and they took off, and they were able to stay in business, if not grow, because of being a support to the industry.
And even provide other sides of that, because they also, people don't realize, they have one of the largest collections of cars in the Southeast, the stable of thoroughbreds.
Yep.
Of collector vehicles.
Mr. Kofer.
And I've been in that building, and it's phenomenal. And they provide cars for movies. They provide all that stuff. They maintain. There's a guy there that's his job. He maintains that collection.
That's cool.
We have a friend, Jason and I, a mutual friend, Matt Drake, who I've had on this podcast because he is a organic farmer, or likes to do that stuff.
He's a cool guy all around.
And
he knows how to do a lot of things.
He's gotten into the plumbing industry, and he works for Royal Flush.
Cool.
I don't mind mentioning it for him, but he went through their training program and has started it now. And I'll end with this. He came to my house the other day because he has a side business where he chops wood up and sells it to people that want it for fireplaces. And he came over and we're talking, and I was asking about the job. He goes, yeah, it's going really well. This is what he said. He said that pays really good. He says that a lot of guys out there have gotten into the, I guess you'd call it trench digging, where they're using, what do you call those, mini
X?
Yeah, those things.
Yep.
Says a lot of guys, he says he doesn't want to do that sort of thing, but he says the guys that do that, he says he knows plenty of dudes that are out there working 12, 14-hour days. He said they're just killing it. He said they are just making money hand over fist. He's like, I can't do that because I want to be at home with my wife and kids.
Right.
He said, so I just sort of stick with the service stuff and do that. But he's like, for people that want to get out there and make some real money, he's like, those guys, they're pulling 50+ hours a week, but they are making some serious dough.
Yeah, so,
is he there to cut your tree up, Gene?
Cut my tree up.
Did he do that?
Oh, no. I did that on my own.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's so Chris, my partner, his company, they have one, and on one hand you can make a lot of money with it, but it costs a lot to get it and to take it out. So to get it on the trailer, to have all that it takes to make it run. I've been there. Like, I got to go on a call when they did that, when they pulled a water service line from my house out to the curb, out to the meter. I got to be there for that, which is really cool. But yeah, it's costly to get it out on the road, but man, once you do though, man, you can, and he told me he knows a couple guys that do that's literally all they do is go and dig trenches for water lines, take water lines out, and somebody else comes out and does the rest. And yeah, he said you can make a killing doing it. It's hard, but man.
Well, hey, if you learn to do that at like 24, you're making enough money, you might be able to retire from it by the time you're 44 and just move on to something that's a little easier,
Yeah, start your own business, do whatever. If you're wise with the money and you make enough of it,
Yeah. Yep. Keith, I'm going to leave links to y'all's website on the comments
below.
Like and subscribe.
Yes. Like that right there.
Yes, everybody like and subscribe. Hit the button below.
So that if people want to get in touch or just reach out and donate $2 million to the organization, you can, by all means.
Or even just 1 million.
Listen, at this point, I'll take $5,000, but I'll take $1,000.
If you got 2 million, maybe put like $500,000 toward Talk the Now podcast. Maybe put 1.5 towards the trades business.
Look, we'll put it in an interest-bearing account and just pay everybody monthly. So that works for me.
Gene has to start his barbecue restaurant, so.
Oh no, I'm not ready for that. I'll try barbecue all day, but I don't know if I can. Okay. That's another episode.
Yes.
Barbecue.
Yeah, there we go. Well, Keith can definitely have some input on that episode.
I bet a lot of plumbers know some good barbecue.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
All right,
man.
Keith. Well, we're gonna let you go, man. And thanks
you.
for letting us know more about this. And
yeah, that's great.
we'll talk to you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.